Alrighty. Next up is Kyra Droog. She is a graduate of MacEwan University's Bachelor of Communication Studies program. Kyra is an 8-time published author with 3 short fiction credits and 5 nonfiction credits. She has worked in a variety of fields, including recreation, communication, editing, and publishing. She has been a lifelong fan of the Beatles and is presenting an excerpt from her recently published research book, The Continuing Story of the Beatles. Here she is with I Am the Walrus and Glass Onion, Intentions, Deeper Meanings, and Storytelling in Two Beatles Tunes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. I am really, really excited to be here to speak to you about one of my favorite topics, the Beatles. Today, we'll be exploring the impacts of intention, deeper meaning, and storytelling in two particularly fascinating Beatles tunes, I Am the Walrus and Glass Onion. Now, unless you're a certified Beatles fan, chances are you haven't heard of Glass Onion, and you know I Am the Walrus as that one weird Beatles tune. No one here is going to hold that against you. Instead, I'm here to open your eyes to the stories behind these songs and encourage you to take the time to consider what these songs mean to you. So, to begin, let's explore the question that we're aiming to answer today. Does writing a song without meaning inherently imbue a song with meaning? I Am the Walrus and Glass Onion were both products of the incredible mind of John Winston Ono Lennon. And before we can begin to explore the songs and their meanings, we must first consider the perspectives of the man who created them. John Winston Ono Lennon is one half of the Lennon-McCartney songwriting duo and is well known for his creative, melodious, and occasionally psychedelic tunes. He had a knack for creating songs that were open to audience interpretation, which stemmed from his youth when he wrote nonsensical poetry and short stories, first published right as Beatlemania began in the United States. This cemented him in history and through Beatles fans as the smart Beatle, something that followed him throughout his career. Now, as you may be aware, and if you take the time to enjoy the upcoming book that Brian and I just completed, you will learn it very well. Many Beatles fans took the time to analyze Beatles songs looking for deeper meaning. In some cases, this was, to try and establish the purpose behind the songs. In other cases, the analyzing took people like Charles Manson to a belief that the Beatles were angels and that they were speaking to him and telling him to incite a race war through hidden messages in the White Album. Regardless of intent or the result, the Beatles conspiracy theorists drove John Lennon reasonably insane, so he elected to use his power as a songwriter to create songs that he intended to be meaningless. But did those songs end up being meaningless? Let's explore. The first of the two songs that we will explore is I Am the Walrus. This is a fairly well-known Beatles song that exists with the intent of being meaningless. As it turns out, just before writing this song, John Lennon received a letter from a student who was analyzing the contents of Beatles songs for a class. This student, his name was Stephen Bailey, sent the letter from Quarry Bank School, and mentioned to Lennon that an English master or instructor was getting his class to analyze Beatles songs. The idea of Beatles songs being analyzed as part of a literature course in his old school amused John Lennon, who decided to confuse such students by writing a song full of the most perplexing and incoherent clues. With this purpose in mind, let's take a look at I Am the Walrus and see what meaning, or lack thereof, we could find. This is the point in the presentation at which I was planning to share some of the music with you. However, technology has failed me. So instead, I have posted the links in the resources document. So I'm hoping that if you are inspired by this presentation and are interested in hearing the songs, you can go there to find them. In phrases to consider then is some of the lyrics that we would have looked at. I am he, as you are me, and we are all together, is the first line of the song, and it actually sounds reasonably sensible and serious. Scholars believe that the opening line represents a paraphrase of the concept, I am thou, thou art I, he is ours, we are both his, which comes from the teachings of Gurdjieff. Lennon, on the other hand, suggested it was the result of an acid trip. Now, there's no doubt that the song sounds like it was created in a drug-induced haze, but did Lennon unintentionally paraphrase a spiritual leader in the entry line, while believing it was the drug that had provided him with the lyrics? Now, Of course, one of the big questions about I Am the Walrus surrounds the identities of the Eggman and the Walrus. Though Lennon insisted that neither of them have an inspiration or a persona behind them, Lennon did later admit that parts of the song were inspired by a Lewis Carroll poem, which is why he chose a walrus as the key character in the song. The running theory is that the Eggman refers to the vocalist of the band The Animals. His name is Eric Burden, who had an unusual practice of breaking eggs over his female conquests while making love, thereby becoming known among his musical colleagues as the Eggman. John Lennon, being John Lennon, loved that story, and it's entirely possible that he did purposefully reference Burden in this song, while still maintaining that there's no intention for meaning within the song. We will discuss the walrus shortly, but the running theory is that Paul McCartney is the walrus, because the walrus is a Scandinavian symbol of death. And some people believe that Paul McCartney actually died in 1966. We'll get to the Paul McCartney is dead conspiracy theory in just a minute. The final lyric I wanted to explore is, I'm crying. Now, John Lennon had a troubled childhood that involved being abandoned by most of his family and his mother being killed in a hit-and-run accident when he was still young, and he manifested his more hidden darkness within lines like, I'm crying. Much like in the early Beatles song Help, which Lennon attributed as an actual cry for help. Lennon hid his feelings behind cheery, joyful, or psychedelic sounds and tunes to make them sound less intense than they actually were. Now that we've had time to explore I Am the Walrus, let's take a moment to explore the conspiracy theory that ties I Am the Walrus and our next song, Glass Onion, together. Oh, is it going to let me? There we go. As the conspiracy theory goes, James Paul McCartney was killed in a car crash on November 9, 1966. And instead of admitting his death to the rest of the world, the Beatles decided to hire a Paul McCartney lookalike so that they could continue with their Beatles fame and fortune. The theory states that the rest of the Beatles felt remorse for covering up Paul's death, so they left specific clues within their songs and album covers for fans to find and uncover. Now, with a conspiracy theory this way, there's bound to be tons of even crazier clues that match up to the theory, right? I could talk about the Paul is dead conspiracy theory all day, but for now, let's look at the main aspects that impact these two songs. Of course, I Am the Walrus plays a big part in the Paul is dead conspiracy theory because the black walrus symbolizes death in certain Scandinavian cultures, and when they filmed the music video, McCartney was undoubtedly in the walrus costume. The other big aspect of the Paul is dead conspiracy theory is found on the Abbey Road album cover, which happens to be on your screen and behind me in an image. On the surface, it looks as if it's just the Beatles crossing the street. To trained Beatles conspiracy theorists, however, the image represents definitive truth that Paul McCartney is actually dead. In the picture, you'll notice that John Lennon is wearing all white, just like a priest. Ringo Starr is dressed in black like a pallbearer, and George Harrison bringing up the rear in a blue jean getup. He is the gravedigger of the group. Paul McCartney, our dear shoeless Beatle, is not wearing shoes because you do not need shoes if you are dead. He is also holding a cigarette in his right hand, even though he is left-handed, and he is walking out of step with the other Beatles, further signs that he has moved on. Of course, there is more to this image. We could spend the entire 15 minutes talking about this image. I'm not going to do that to you. Instead, let's jump into Glass Onion and explore the ways in which Lennon continues to poke fun at Beatles conspiracy theorists with his music. Glass Onion is one of the lesser-known Beatles tunes, though it's a particularly fascinating song to explore. The song emerged from some of the frustrations that Lennon had towards Beatles fans who felt like the Beatles were imbuing their songs with deeper meanings. Glass Onion was a reasonably playful response then to those Beatles fans looking for deeper meaning. Let's not take a quick listen to the song because we can't do that. If you're interested in taking a quick listen to the song, again, the link is in the Panel 5 resources. So, the fact that John Lennon starts this song with, I told you, is meaningful in a few senses. Important to remember is the fact that this song is intended to tease Beatles conspiracy theorists. I told you suggests that there was a deeper meaning there all along, providing a twisted yet playful sense of affirmation to Beatles fans. This line really sets the tone for the song. Nope, don't start playing. I'm lost here now. teasing and playful to those who know its intent, and serious and focused to those who deem the song to be a truthful exploration of Beatles' discography. The concept of looking through the bent back tulips is also curious and is likely an attempt by Lennon at creating confusing imagery. At the same time, there's also a perfectly reasonable explanation for that particular image. There was a particularly fancy restaurant in London in the 1960s known as the Parks, which used an arrangement of tulips. As Derek Taylor, former Apple press officer, noted, you'd be in Park sitting at your table, wondering what's going on with the flowers, and then you'd realize that they were actually tulips with their petals bent all the way back so that you could see the reverse side of the petals and also the stamen. This is what John Lennon meant about seeing how the other half lives. He meant seeing how the other half of the flower lived, but also, because it was an expensive restaurant, how the other half of society lived. It's references like these that really make you wonder if Lennon thought he was creating these confusing and convoluted images that no one would be able to understand, or if he was purposefully including images that had reference to something in a song that was intended to reference nothing. In the latter sense, I have no doubt that Lennon had the final laugh when it came to the purpose and understanding of references like these, but it's important to note the interesting dichotomy once more of finding meaning where none is supposed to exist. That said, it's also entirely possible that Lennon's image is nothing more than his imagination, and Beatles fans believed they had found the answer when in truth, no answer exists. Beatles fans believed that a glass onion was a reference to a glass-topped coffin feeding into the Paul is dead conspiracy theory. The general understanding of a glass onion, though, is something that would have layer after layer peeled away only to realize it was transparent after all. This logic follows John Lennon's, and that no matter how many layers of understanding Beatles fans pull from Beatles tunes, they peel everything away only to realize that there was really no meaning at all. That said, the Glass Onion also references the way in which Lennon has put the song together, layer upon layer of meaning that actually means nothing. It's quite the ingenious image, because it's both logical and illogical at the same time, quintessentially Lennon. Of course, now that we've had the chance to explore the Paul is dead conspiracy theory, it makes good sense why the line, "Here's another clue for you all, the walrus is Paul," is a particularly popular one within the song. According to theorists, Lennon included this line to officially confirm McCartney's death. According to Lennon, the line was included to poke fun at the theorists who he believed were completely out of their minds. As we know, I Am the Walrus was also intended to poke fun at these Beatles conspiracy theorists, so the fact that Lennon was able to connect the two teasing songs together based on Beatles conspiracy theories is particularly poignant. So what does it all mean then? Well, to a Beatles conspiracy theorist, it means that Lennon has confirmed that Paul is dead, adding proof to the conspiracy theory and providing new and intentional phrasing to explore. To an average Beatles fan, these songs are new and engaging, sprinkled with an inkling of curiosity and an opportunity to learn the lyrics to sing along. But what do these songs mean to John Lennon? On a spectrum from intentionally meaningless to unintentionally meaningful, we could place John Lennon on a few places, depending on our interpretation of Lennon's intention. The songs could be, as Lennon claims, intentionally meaningless, and all of the interpretations that we just went over could be literally nothing. I'm going to skip over unintentionally meaningless because, as we just explored, there's intent in the lack of meaning, so there isn't really an argument to place John Lennon there. The songs could be unintentionally meaningful. After all, Lennon did admit that there was a fair amount of drug use involved in preparing these songs, which could mean that his subconscious worked with the drugs to create things that didn't seem meaningful but actually were. Finally, and I would argue most likely, the songs could be intentionally meaningful, because John Lennon would absolutely write a song, say it has no meaning, and then purposefully make it meaningful anyway, just to get a kick out of fans' reactions. As we explored, there are logical connections to be drawn from the lyrics, making this even more plausible. So back to our question. Does writing a song without meaning inherently imbue a song with meaning? Yes, 1,000 times yes. A song's meaning is only partially determined by the artist. Each person in this session would listen to a song and connect to it in a different way and on a different level. In addition, the simple act of making a song meaningless provides a song with meaning. Its intent to be meaningless inherently makes it meaningful. If nothing else, Glass Onion and I Am the Walrus prove to us that songs can be intended and interpreted in a wide variety of ways. John Lennon left legacies behind. His violent and sudden death has provided many questions and, interestingly enough, sparked many conspiracy theories. His biggest legacy, however, is that of imagination. He has encouraged us to use our imaginations and believe in the world that we want to see. If we apply that legacy to our exploration today, it means that any of our interpretations are correct, so long as we continue to imagine.
Thank you so much for presenting. Yeah, a lot of these questions were gamefully asked or answered by our presenters. I would love for you, Kyra, to elaborate really quickly on my cardinal sin of a question there, where I mixed up John Lennon for Paul McCartney there. But would love to hear your little rant on on your opinion of the conspiracy.
It's the thing about the Paul is dead conspiracy theory is it's so unquestionably well-rounded. Like it's in my humble opinion, it is only a conspiracy theory. It is not a real thing. That said, the storyteller in me absolutely loves the detail and the way that it's followed in every single work that the Beatles have done since 1966. And I love the fact that Paul McCartney even parodied it. He did, I don't remember what album, but he did an album cover, and it's just him walking across the street, and he took all of the things that Beatles fans took as signs that he was dead, and he parodied those in his album cover. And the album was something like Paul Lives or something like that. So not only has it become this really serious, people actually believe it, but it's become like it's a cultural icon at this point, and it's so much fun. And like I'm going to paraphrase this quote really incorrectly as I open it up. There it is. But when I was doing some research for the book, I came across a quote by Rob Sheffield, who's a Beatles writer, and he said, "If the theory is true, then the McCartney imposter was the one that wrote Hey Jude and Blackbird and all of McCartney's solo works, which means he's the guy who probably should have had Paul's job in the first place." And honestly, I don't think there's any better way to sum it up, really.
Oh, fair enough. Fantastic. Thank you.